We're always rolling.
We're always rolling.
So what I want to talk about today, I know you're probably wondering like which oud we're going to smell.
Well, I'm always sitting on the edge of my seat, I'll be honest with you, because I don't know which,
what's in store.
Surprise you're going to come up with, and I'm still, from the sandalwood, I'm still sort of like, mellowed out.
Yeah, it's a very, very tranquil, very calming, centering experience, the sandalwood, isn't it?
Yeah, yes, definitely.
Yeah.
From that time on, I was sandalwood out.
Well, today, I don't want to give like a formal structure to this show. I don't want to make it like only like educational or only about smelling ouds and then giving feedback and reactions and these kind of things. I want to share. It's like almost like a live blog, like a video blog, or like where people can like zoom into my creative process and see what am I dealing with, like what's on my mind. And those who are interested in that. Of course, there's people that want to learn about perfumery. They want to know what is vetiver, what is sandalwood, what is oud, what is beta damascene, for example, or any of these things. And we will have something for those people too. Okay. So I'll try to mix it up. But what I wanted to share today is a personal struggle that I'm personally at this moment dealing with, which is I've made it my life's mission to create a certain type of perfume, right? Okay. But I just find it's almost like a Sisyphean task. The myth of Sisyphus, where he had to, he had this rock that he had to push to the top of the mountain, and it just rolled back down again, and then he had to push it back up again, and then back down again. Well, these are my rocks, like these bottles that you see here. This is like my Sisyphean attempts at a certain note in a perfume, at capturing that note as succinctly and as brilliantly and as completely as possible. But before I tell you what that note is, before I tell you what the note is.
Okay, I'm sitting at the edge of my seat.
I know you probably want to just be just out with it. Like, what are you talking about, right? I'm going to go back to oud for a second. I'm going to go back to oud because it was the oud that inspired me and made me think about this note. Can you believe it? It's actually a flower.
All right. Okay, so we're leaving the trees now, and we're going.
We're going back to the trees so that then we can go back to the flowers, if that makes any sense.
Yeah.
So actually what I have here, and you can see the batch here, this is really phenomenal agarwood from 1997. I'll just show you what I mean.
Okay, I'm ready.
Look at that.
Oh, thank you.
What do you think of that?
Looks very nice.
This is from a very tiny island in a small archipelago of islands in the Indonesian larger archipelago. The small archipelago is known as Maluku, the Maluku archipelago, the Maluku Islands, and that particular island is Seram.
So these from different trees, obviously.
These are from one tree.
One tree.
In Seram.
Oh, okay.
Yeah, 1997 harvest.
Yeah. And so.
What about this?
Yeah, you can open up.
About this tree and what is it and so forth?
Yeah.
Well, yes. This tree is so special. I offered some chips of this from the same harvest to our friends and on my website. Seram 1997, and what I said was unique about this particular harvest is the note that I got from the wood, and I'll just let you get a whiff of that note and see what you think,
okay,
without saying anything.
All right.
without me saying anything. You'll be the one talking.
Well, all I can talk about is what I'm smelling, right?
Well, there you go.
And how I feel, how the smell makes me feel. So.
Does this remind you of anything, this note?
Well, it reminds me of when we were talking about the odes, the different types of odes. So it has that smell,
Right.
obviously. Yeah.
If you zoom in, there's a note of lilac and a note of iris.
Really?
And like almost like a violet note as well in there.
Well, you have such a sensitive nose.
You don't pick it up?
Not really, not yet. I can smell a little bit, but not that distinct actually.
Okay.
Yeah.
Now smell this.
Oh yeah.
You smell the note?
Yeah. Now I can smell that.
You can smell it, right?
Yeah.
It's exactly, that smell is in that wood.
Oh yeah.
You smell it?
Yeah, now I can smell
it. Smells like the perfume.
Yeah, I can smell it now. From the top, like you said.
Yes.
Yeah.
The top note is the pure iris. It's like the scent of the iris rhizome, not the petals. Because iris flowers actually smell slightly distinct and they're not quite like a root.
Yeah.
But what we're interested in is the root of the iris flower, because that is what we use in perfumery, is the rhizome of the iris plant.
Yeah, I read a little bit about this, and they were saying that actually many people think that irises don't have any smell at all. They were saying.
Yeah, I mean it's like almost no smell. If you go up close to the flower, it's almost like this. It just looks nice, but the smell actually is in the roots.
Oh, I see.
Yeah,
okay.
And the flowers that do have a smell, they smell like almost like jasmine-ish.
Yeah.
More so.
Well, that's what they were saying. Yeah, they were saying it's like plummy, or some people were saying that
like the fruitiness of jasmine sambac, for example. Yes.
Yeah, I see. Because they said it was different from the fragrance of iris, like the oil,
right?
That, and it's different than the flower itself.
So well, now
is that true about any flower? I mean, like, because rose, when you smell a rose, you do smell the flower. You do smell that.
Well, of course. I mean, every flower is different. So when you smell carnations, for example, you know, like the heady narcotic scent of the flower itself is so strong that I don't think anybody would need to distill carnation roots to get any smell from the plant at all. In fact, they won't even get the same smell that they get from the petals.
Yeah, something totally different.
Exactly. Rose, I mean, is full of fragrant compounds that make the famous and legendary rose oil. Right. Iris is a bit different.
Okay.
What you do with iris is you strip the roots, you skin them, and then it's almost, I mean, it boggles the mind, right? You have to age them for 4 years.
At least.
At least.
Okay.
Okay? Before you distill them. Right? And people get confused about this. They say, well, why is it called butter? Like, if it's distilled, why is it called butter? Well, I'll let you be the judge of that. This is iris root essential oil.
So I open it, or just?
You can be my guest.
Okay, thank you. Well, it looks like butter, first of all.
It looks like butter, that's right.
Yeah, and it does have that smell.
Yep.
Yep, that's.
That you're smelling the pure roots of the iris flower.
Wow.
Yeah.
You see this? Yeah. And this is after it's been aged for?
After it's been aged for at least a number of years.
Yeah.
What they do is that they just distill it straight up.
Okay.
Okay, it's not like this butter where you know, like making like churning butter out of milk. Right?
Yeah.
It's not that kind of thing. It's just a straight up steam distillation of the rhizome. Okay, and what you get is, because of this content of mystric acid in the compound that you get as a result, it quickly solidifies and turns into this butter-like solid waxy substance, which we call iris butter. Iris butter, if you will. You smell, it's almost like this sharp, heady, astringent, floral, but it's very beautiful, I find.
Yeah. Yeah, it is.
So this is iris butter. Now this is actually, believe it or not, as labor intensive and time consuming as it is to make. This is not the most expensive iris ingredient on the market. Right.
What is?
Well, that would be the iris absolute,
Alright.
which is the butter purified via alcohol to remove the mystric acid and to leave you with the irons, which are the
pure stuff.
The constituents that are responsible for that note that you smell is just the iron content. So that's, I think, roughly 15% iron content. This, which is the most expensive perfumery ingredient in the world, apart from one thing. Can you guess what that thing is?
No.
You can't?
No.
It's oud. I mean, it's,
Really?
oud is obviously, right? But
yeah.
I have ouds that actually sell for less than this. This is very expensive.
So not all ouds then?
Not all ouds. I mean, aroha kiyaku, for example. Right? Yeah. I sell it for like and this is retail. I'm talking. This is just a retail price. You can get 1 gram for like $55, right? That's, if you calculate it at the kilo rate, it's 55,000 retail. This wholesale, right? This is about 75,000 euros a kilogram.
Wow.
The iris absolute, and you can smell it.
Whoops.
Be careful.
Yeah.
Be careful.
It's a good thing I don't shake too much.
Nice.
How much of this does it take
to make that?
Yeah.
Well, I mean, we could do the math, right? It's like 15% of that to get like...
Turns out to
get 80% of that, if we calculated it, it's like you need like at least like 5-6 times of that amount to get the same amount in iris absolute.
I see.
Right. So, but getting this is very, very difficult because you have to source it through Switzerland, and they produce it in France, and it's only these major perfume houses that make it.
But iris obviously is not the same. You don't have the same problem like with oud, with the trees and stuff like that. Right.
You don't.
Roots, iris roots.
But do you know how many roots you need in order to make a kilo of this?
No. I mean,
you probably need like tons of roots, like thousands upon thousands of them.
I see.
Yeah, so it's not a question of endangerment or scarcity as much as it is a question of like sheer like quantity, labor and volume and then time spent aging it for 4 years before you even get anything that you can write home about.
But do they have farms? I'm sure that work towards this. I mean, these big
companies. Yeah. This is cultivated in France. It's cultivated in Morocco. It's cultivated in Albania, and it's cultivated in China. Yeah. Okay. Iris.
And they're all the same
quality.
Yeah.
I mean, supposedly the French is supposed to be the best.
Okay.
Right, but I've smelled some Albanian varieties that are quite fragrant. I actually have some here. Yeah. I don't have any Chinese or Moroccan.
Okay.
Yeah.
This is
French.
Okay.
Yeah. So I had to, in order, why I have this is, and you're probably wondering, what are you doing with such a small amount? This was the sample that I had to get in order to approve the batch that I was then going to get a larger amount of, and this is the actual canister that I then ended up buying after approving of this sample.
I see. So this is what you end up buying.
Okay. This is what I'm going to be using in my perfume. And I guess now the cat's out of the bag is that the perfume that I've been so besotted with, composing and sweating over all these days is an iris perfume.
Well, you're opening up yourself to our viewers and everyone.
I want to document my struggle, because making an iris perfume has proven to be insanely difficult. It is like almost impossible, because the minute that you put any other aromatic with that, you can easily see how it'll dominate it.
I see. Well, do you refer back to any previous attempts by other people or
to make an iris perfume?
Yeah, to make an iris perfume.
Of course.
Okay, so you see what they've done, and then you.
I don't. But I by no means imitate them.
Oh no, of course. Because you're an artist.
Yeah. If there's anything that artists believe in imitation, right? There are artists that believe that imitating someone is a legitimate way to make a perfume, and I know people that have successfully catapulted their brands into recognition by the market just by making imitations of classics. You know, so there are people that the only thing they can do is imitate. They can't. I mean, they're geniuses. They're very brilliant
in imitation.
In imitation. So there are people that, you know, they can. You give them like a classic Guerlain from the 1910 or 1920s or like this, and people can't find that kind of smell anymore because most of the ingredients are banned and they're discontinued and they're hard to find. Nobody cares to make that anymore, right? Except for, you know, people like small scale artisans like yours truly and some of my friends, you know. So there are people that can successfully imitate, like Vol de Nuit, for example, the classic Guerlain, or Mitsuko, or Shalimar, you know, the original batches from the Great Depression times, you know. And
so this brings to mind another question. So are there patents for these things or no? Like if you make a fragrance,
right?
Okay, is there a way to patent this stuff, or?
I mean, people can get away with a lot in this industry if they just tweak it a little bit. You know, unless it's like an exact replica, like you can prove, like with the GCMS, that okay, this is just a plain copy of this, right?
But that's difficult to do. Obviously.
But I've even seen famous perfumers. You know, like I smelled this. There was this a very well-known perfumer. You know, I don't want to say the name, right? But I went and I smelled this thing in Selfridges in Manchester. They said this is a new line, it's great. I said, oh, that's just Terre d'Hermès. It's like the very, very well-known perfume by Hermès. It's this terre, you know, the earth by Hermès, right? I said, it's just that. He just tweaked the top just minimally, and it's just there's a rebottled terre. Why would anybody like not recognize it or even protest and say, how can you do that? Like you should. I think you should get like you should be penalized in the community if you imitate someone, because I personally find it, and you know, this is my own belief system, you know, other people don't subscribe to it. Okay. I find it appalling. I find it appalling that someone should spend years, sometimes decades, mastering their craft, sweating, bleeding through the nose, literally. You know, waking up in the morning with like red mucus that comes out, and you're like suffering in that bathroom sink, like saying, this is like a huge ordeal. Look what I'm going through to master my craft. Someone comes in, takes your idea, like copy paste. It's just like, oh, he did this and this and this. I'll just do the same thing, and there you are. I'm a successful perfumer now. I think
I'm sure that as with art, right?
Right.
There are artists who try to copy, you know, the masters, and even their students, actually, right, who try to copy their masters. But the people who know are the people that appreciate or spend the time to find out.
There's no problem if you copy, if you give credit.
Yeah.
If you say that, okay, I got this idea from so-and-so, and this was my inspiration behind it, and I just wanted to give you as close a replica as you can possibly get in our time.
Even people though that reference other people, they usually don't do exactly what that person does.
They don't exactly.
I mean, they try. They say, I've been influenced by this particular artist or this particular musician. But they usually build on that. You know?
You wouldn't believe. Yeah. You wouldn't believe what happens.
Well, maybe I'm too naive to.
I've had people like I've had people like not just copy things that I do, but like verbatim just copy and paste from my website on their website. I do this, they do this, and it's like this, it's like you're followed by, it's like you're being stalked. It's like this insane. I mean, I wouldn't have such a strong aversion to copycatting unless I had tasted it myself.
Your personal experience.
So, I mean, to get back to your question, would I ever copy someone else?
Yeah.
I would rather die. I would rather die and drop dead or quit. You know, let's say I'd rather quit, throw the towel in, say I'm done with perfumery. I'm just going to sell sandalwood chips or something for the rest of my life. Here it is. There's the trees, if they copied each other, I don't mind. Right?
Well, I think every real artist feels the same way you do.
No.
Every real artist who has morals, all right, and is creative. No. Really?
I mean, look at like, I'll name some great artists. Like, look at Monet and Manet, right?
Yeah.
You don't think that they were copying each other?
Well, they took from each other, but each one had his own individual style.
You see, I mean, when you go
can
to
tell the difference.
you go to the Met, right?
Yeah.
The Museum of Modern Art or the
Yeah.
Metropolitan Museum in New York City,
Yeah.
and you see all these impressionistic paintings, and it's like almost as if the same guy, painted all of them.
Yeah, the people who really appreciate this kind of art, they can tell the differences. Each individual person, artist, has a style, right? And even in the same genre, they have a different style of way they do that.
The one who has their own style to a greater degree, is a greater artist. Like who comes to mind when talking about Impressionism? Who is the most individual, the most unique in his hallmark signature from all these?
I think that's a matter of opinion, but tell me who you think.
Well, Van Gogh, obviously.
Van Gogh, he is distinct.
100%.
Yeah.
There is that spirit. We talked about on another session, we talked about the spiritual state that the artist imprints in the work. Yeah. And if it is just a bootleg, it's devoid of a soul. It's like
Van Gogh had his, even though he obviously he was during the same time period as these other artists, his personality showed very through in his paintings. See, this is it.
Exactly.
You could see I've read a lot about him. And you could tell the difference. When you see one of his paintings than one of Monet or
you got Monet, Pissarro, Cézanne, Russo. I never heard of this one.
He was friends actually with Van Gogh.
Well, there you are.
Yeah, and so.
But the reason that a Van Gogh Starry Night or the sunflower pot, right, is a Starry Night is because of the individuality, the originality.
Yeah, his personality definitely came through.
Yes.
You could see it.
So now, how is the personality going to come through if someone just paints another vase full of sunflowers in the same type of brushstrokes as Van Gogh?
Yeah, no, it's different.
No, it's a copy, it's a replica, it's a fake. I mean, to me, it should be worthless. I mean, it's not what I.
So the same with
perfume.
Perfume.
Yeah. So you have people. I mean, I was appalled, and I just want to put this out there. I was appalled when I saw. I mean, just recently, I didn't even know this existed. There are companies that make replicas of niche perfumes and just offer it to you for less. And I was like, what is that supposed to mean? Like, he'll say, I have this, the Roja Dove, whatever, I don't, what's the name? There's the Dagilev, right? Roja Dove Dagilev, you can buy it for $35. Dagilev is like 1,500 pounds if you buy it in London. Don't ask me if I think it deserves that price tag, but at least, I mean, it's trying to be whatever it is, right?
Yeah.
You can buy it from another brand, and they say it. I mean, we're giving you Dagilev, you're paying like 100th of the price or 1,000th or whatever that works out to be. And I think this should just be illegal. There should be some kind of authority that bans and controls this kind of activity.
Unfortunately, in the general capitalism, the market, right?
Yeah.
That's the whole thing, the whole idea. The whole idea is, who can I sell? Who's going to buy this stuff? I mean, anyone that is going to buy something and they see this particular perfume, for example, for $1,500 and then for $35,
right?
They have to think, well, what's going on here?
Yeah, I mean, would you?
But who would, maybe most people, the people who can afford to buy the $35 bottle,
will buy it.
Will buy it, and the people that can afford to, or maybe are more into perfumes and how they're made and the art and the perfumer himself or herself.
Right.
Maybe those are the people that appreciate. You could say that about many things.
Oh yeah. I mean, there's people made millions just selling fake watches.
Yeah.
Bootlegged replicas from famous like Rolex and whatever. $800 for an exact replica of a Rolex. Who wouldn't buy that, right?
Yeah.
I wouldn't.
Yeah.
I wouldn't.
Yeah, same thing here. I mean, they always say that, it's the quality, right? That's what I've always been into, is the quality of that particular item I'm going to buy, especially when it comes to oils or perfumes, right?
Right.
Because these things should be something, it's not just a matter of spraying and you're going out wherever you're going, right? It's an experience, right?
Yeah.
So some people don't look at it as an experience. Some
they
people
look at it as just like,
hey, I shaved, I'm going to put some aftershave on, I'm out,
Yeah. So to get back to your question, which is what brought us to this point, I would never take another perfume that was made, by another perfumer with iris and then replicate that.
Well, I didn't mean actually replicate, but I meant just refer to and see what they've done, how they
refer to. I mean, if I didn't refer to them, it's like I wouldn't have these bottles here.
Yeah.
You know, I want to see what they've done in order to see how can I make it better, how can I improve, how can I make it even more groundbreaking. Like, how can I not do what he did, but do something totally exactly the opposite of that.
Well, that's a good intention then. Yeah, definitely.
So this is. Without further ado, this is the most legendary iris perfume in the history of iris perfumes, and it's called Iris Gris, or I don't know if you say it Iris Gris as you would in French. I apologize to my French colleagues and friends. I don't speak French yet, so this was given to me as a gift by my friend Sultan in London. He went to the Osmothèque in France, and he got a spritz of the original Iris Gris, and he gave that to me. Do you smell anything?
Yes, of course.
You can smell the rhizome, the powdery, almost slightly astringent white.
Yeah. It smells very nice, actually.
Yeah, this is Iris Gris. It's from like mid 20th century kind of thing. It was made by a person, by a perfumer who is now no more.
So whether they just spray it on that? They spray it on that, or dip it in, or what?
No, you spray it on put that. One spritz, as we will do with these.
And then put it in that package, and it's...
Yeah, and then kind of like preserve the smell. Obviously the top notes and whatever are all gone by now.
Yeah.
But there is a...
yeah, you can smell it. Yeah, you can smell the powderiness of it.
Yeah.
Definitely.
I smell... it's very well done. I mean, it's very well done. But I also smell this, obviously, this white musk in that note. Now, keeping that reference in mind, how does that remind you of the Seram, 1997, the agarwood, and how does it compare to the butter?
It doesn't seem, well, obviously because it's been a while, right, since but it has a light, smell to it, right? Lighter, right? And powdery. I didn't smell that much of that powdery smell, honestly, with these. Right. So that's the only distinction.
What you smell in these is the top note.
Yeah.
Right. So what you're getting is that iron headiness.
Yeah.
Diffusiveness.
Similar.
It's a similar character.
It's similar, but
yeah. So I will show you. What other people have done with iris, just to see, like how you would compare that to the Iris Gris and the butters. And I'll start with the one that I already showed you, which when we were smelling the chips. This is Iris Poudrée, right? Or if you say it Iris Poudrée or something like this, I'm sorry if I pronounced it wrong.
You're trying.
Yeah. So.
Us Americans,
What to do? Here you are.